Hello everyone, my name is Abhishek and I am a solutions architect, cloud enthusiast and an AWS practitioner. In my last video, I created very simple API gateway project with basic CRUD into the DynamoDB. Please check out that video in the description. Today, I am diving deep into one topic of API gateway, Authorizer. Let me quickly show how does it look like on a browser. You must have seen this page before in my last video. So this time I have created a text field for authorization token if you want to delete a comment. For posting or editing a comment, there is no need for authorization. In this section, I will go and enter the authorization token, which is nothing but a string of characters. And I select the comment by the ID from the drop down and click on delete. If I give wrong authentication token, I see the 403 forbidden error. And if I give correct token, as you can see, the delete is successful. And if I refresh, I can see only the remaining comments and not the deleted one. Okay, so let's see how did I do this. Authorizer. It is a basic authentication mechanism where the client accessing the API method is given an authorization token or a password to access the method. And that token is enforced on per method basis. Or simply put, if I want only certain methods to be protected with the password, I can do that. In this demo, I created a password for the client and enforced it on the delete method. So if you use the HTML page to post, edit or get the comments, you will not need to know the password. But if you want to delete any comment, you will need to enter the password. The authorizer will require a Lambda function, which will compare the password entered by the user. API gateway will extract the password or the authentication token from the HTTP header of the request and send it to the Lambda as a JSON event. The authorizer Lambda returns a policy document, which is a JSON response. API gateway reads the policy document and understands what is the action it needs to perform, on which resource, and whether the action is allowed or denied. The Lambda code has been added to my GitHub account. Link is in the description. As usual, this is not a do it along video. I'm only showing what I have done already. And I will also discuss the common issues I faced and how to resolve those. So, to implement the authorizer, go to your API gateway and then go to Authorizer. Create Authorizer and you will see a page like this. The page will have these fields empty. So, add name to it. Authorizer type is Lambda in this demo. I will create another video for Authorizer using Cognito. Leave the Lambda ARN empty for now. We will come back to it. As I mentioned, the API gateway sends the event to Lambda in a JSON format that is defined in this Lambda event payload section. There are two options, token and request. Token means an HTTP header which will carry the token. And if I click on request, it allows us to define more HTTP headers where this information can go. So if I keep one parameter as header and say authorization token and add another parameter, say query string, the API gateway will collect these two values from HTTP request and send them to Lambda. But in this case, I used token and told the gateway to use the header called authorization token. There is a token validation option in which I can enter some regular expression. Then the gateway will validate if the token provided contains only the characters or numbers based on my regular expression. And if that does not match the regular expression, it will reject it and it will not trigger the Lambda. But we are not using this field for this demo. Before saving this, let's go to Lambda and create an authorizer Lambda function. So go to the Lambda function and create a new Lambda. In this, I am expecting the event JSON to carry the key value pair called authorization token. So I extract the key and compare the value with the hard-coded token value. If it is the correct token, then I set this variable as allow. Then this Lambda will return a JSON policy statement which says that the action is invoke the API, the resource is the delete method, and the effect is this variable, either allow or deny. To set the resource correctly, I need to go back to the APIs and select the ARN of the method which I want to invoke. So I go back to my APIs, resource, and click on delete, and I can see the ARN of this delete method. I copy this and paste it in the JSON of my Lambda response here. Once I test my Lambda and save it, deploy it, I need to go back to my authorizer and add this Lambda so that it can be triggered. So I go back to my authorizer and select the Lambda ARN from the drop down and click Save Changes. You can test your authorizer right here, like entering the authorization token and click Test Authorizer. You see, if I type wrong token, I get the policy with deny, and if I enter correct token, I get the policy with allow. Now it is time for troubleshooting tip number 1. If you make a typo error in the JSON response of the Lambda function will not fail, and it will simply send that erroneous JSON to the API Gateway Authorizer. For example, there can be an error in either the keys or the values or the ARN of the delete method or anything else. In such cases, the authorizer will simply receive the policy document and will try to do what is written in it. And if there is an error, we will be able to see only in the CloudWatch logs. And for API Gateway to be able to write logs to CloudWatch, it needs a new role. So to do that, I go to IAM roles and create a new role. Select the AWS service, API Gateway in this case. Go next. Make sure this permission is added. Edit the JSON if needed. Go next. Give this role a name and create the role. Copy the ARN of this role. Now I go to my API Gateway. I go to settings and add the ARN of the role here. And then I go to my API, go to stages, and there I see log and tracing section. I can enable logs at different levels here. As you can see, there are now logs showing interaction between authorizer and Lambda functions and the response that was sent by the Lambda. Now let's quickly test our authorizer by calling the delete API. But before that, there is one more thing in the config. We created the authorizer along with the trigger Lambda, but we also need to attach this authorizer to an API method, which is delete in this case. So I go to my API, go to resources, click on delete method and edit it. In the authorization drop down, I can see the authorizer that I have created, which I can select here. That's it. Save it and do not forget to deploy the API after any changes to it. I grab the ID of the comment and go to Postman. Put the ID in the body JSON and authorization token in the header, and then call the delete method. And see, I will be able to delete this item now. And now time for troubleshooting tip number 2. You see, I tried testing this from Postman and not from the web page I showed in the beginning of this video. Let's try to do the same with the browser. If I try deleting a comment from the browser, I get the course error. We discussed the course error in the previous video, and course is enabled on the API gateway on the delete method. Still, I'm getting this error. And the reason for this is now my HTTP request is coming with a new header, and the course settings are not set for allowing this header authorization token. So I will go back to course, select these methods, and add authorization token here in allow headers. And I click save, and again, do not forget to deploy the API after any change. And now I go back to my browser, select the ID for a comment, enter the password. I'm entering wrong password just to see if I'm getting course error or not. And I click delete and see I am not getting any course error now. And now I will enter correct token and try to delete this comment. And now it is deleted. Well, that's all for today. You can try it out on my website. The link is in the description. In the next video, I will deep dive in API keys and usage plans, so keep an eye for that. You can check out the Lambda code, Policy JSON, and HTML JavaScript code on my GitHub. Also, see my other videos on YouTube. And finally, contact me via LinkedIn. I will be very happy to participate in any discussions around digital solutions, architecture, and transformations. I will see you in the next video. Thank you and goodbye.